Howdy, y'all. I just had to sell my restaurant. I was part owner of a Southern food restaurant in New York City called The Cardinal. And this story affects everyone. It is a microcosm of the trouble with Western society and capitalism today. So please stay tuned to all the details. We were a very successful restaurant. We were packed every weekend. We probably grossed about $1 million a year. Rent was only $5,000 a year. So why did we have to sell it? Why aren't you still going? I'll tell you why. Because of the parasites and the vultures that feed on entrepreneurs today. They really are killing our culture and they're preventing us from making money. And the parasites who shut down our restaurant perfectly sum up the trouble with the West today. So first of all, we had all these ridiculous fines. New York made up this dumb system where you get an A in your window if you're perfect, B, C, D, right? We would always welcome them. We had a very clean place. But there was all the health inspectors seemed to be from Senegal for some reason. You know how in America, every small motel from coast to coast seems to be a Hindu guy, an Indian? It's like one guy did it and he called his friends and said, you should come down and open a motel. It's very successful. And then they all do. Well, someone from Senegal seems to have called their relatives back home because almost every health inspector we had was from this tiny place in one part of Africa. And these guys would come in and just give us fine after fine after fine. And the most infuriating one was for a dented can. Yes, it's an $800 fine if you have a dented can. Why? Because 1,000,000 years ago, when cans were made of tin, having a dent would mean the tin would flake and could lead to some sort of infection. Today, cans are made of aluminum. You could dent a can from here to the next week, and it's not going to make anyone sick, but still it's an $800 fine and 8 points. Now, to go from an A to a B is 14 points. So one dented can is a long way to a B, and from an A to a B is a lot less money when people walk by and see a B. Infuriating. Okay, so that is a comment on immigration. We are bringing in people who have no regard for the history of the country or the working man, or they feel no kinship with me or my business partners. Similarly, we had to separate our recycling, our food from our recycling. Why did we have to do this? When the sanitation trucks came by, owned by the mob, they would just throw everything together and crunch it all in one big pile. So why do we have to separate it? I'll tell you why. Because someone brought in their Chinese grandmother who goes through the recycling and takes out all the cans. Now, if your food was with your cans, there'd be food everywhere and rats would fill the streets. So you have to separate the cans so that broke Chinese immigrants can go through and take out the cans. Now, they tend to not close the bags when they're done, so you have plastic strewn everywhere. You know what the fine for that is? $3,500. And then you go to court and you have to pay a lawyer $1,500 for his appearance fee. In 1 year, we paid over 20 grand in fines. And that wasn't a particularly bad year. That was just normal. And you talk to restaurant owners in the East Village and they go, yeah, that's life. So you go, I'm a racist, I must hate immigrants, and I'm blaming my failed restaurant on immigrants. Nope. I'm blaming the failed restaurant on the problems with Western culture. And no, immigrants aren't the only problem. And by the way, it's not immigrants, it's the type of immigrants we bring in, okay? Why is this broke Chinese lady here? Who brought her? Now we have this, bring us your poor, bring us your huddled masses, and their cousins, and their dying grandparents. Bring them all. They can sift through the garbage. It cost me 10 grand in 10 years to get my green card. I didn't show up and say, I would like to pick cans from the garbage. Come on in. Zoop. So white people are also a huge problem here. There was this committee like the National Board or something. And by the way, getting a liquor license is so hard. That's the only reason we were able to sell it. The guy's just going to raise the place and use the liquor license. And that again is government corruption. Why do you need a license to sell liquor? It's not a submachine gun. So the board has these meetings and they decide who gets a license, who has to be shut down. They complain. The locals hate the board because when there's no restaurants we're in the East Village between A and B on 4th Street. When there's no restaurants on that street, people get mugged. because it's dark. We leave the lights on. We keep life there. We keep the junkies away. But the board doesn't want more people out drinking alcohol. And if you walk around the East Village now, you'll just see shut down gate after shut down gate. So they were our nemesis, and we would go to these meetings secretly and spy on people, and we'd see they were just not just anti-noise or anti-booze or they were anti-business. They just didn't want more growth in the East Village because they were grumpy old ladies. And also hipsters, guys who looked just like me, wanted to shut down places just to be a dick. Why did you move to New York if you don't like noise? And this was a disturbing moment. There was a guy who put up his hand and he said, I'm going to be in Costa Rica surfing for 4 months, but I call the health department on the restaurant below me about once a week just to try to shut them down. Can someone else call on my behalf while I'm gone? And people were like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll call for you. And me and my business partner sitting here looking at each other going, what did we just see? I'll tell you what we saw. We saw intentional sabotage of entrepreneurs. It's not cool to make money. It's cool to shut companies down. So we have the stupidest immigration policy possible, and this is Canada and America and Europe. Idiotic immigration policy plus a real disdain for entrepreneurs. That's not a good combination. That, in fact, is a suicidal combination. We need to change both of those if we're going to grow and be a happy nation, the nation that we want to be.